Today I want to talk about 5 lessons I learned from my grandson. During summer vacation, I took my 12-year-old grandson to the national parks located in the American Southwest. It was an amazing trip through parts of Arizona and Utah. It included the Grand Canyon, Bryce, Arches, Zion, Monuments National Park, and Sedona. All of them were spectacular in their own way. It was a very memorable trip and one I hope John recalls for the rest of his life. Lesson 1. The day before our trip, I broke my toe. Not from skydiving, mountain climbing, or bungee jumping, but from cleaning my house. I was frantically trying to complete packing and put everything in order prior to departure, and I banged my toe on the bedpost. The doctor at the emergency medical center told me I needed to take it easy for a couple of weeks and I would be fine. I told him I was on my way to a hiking adventure in the Southwest National Parks. He didn't recommend hiking. Unfortunately, at this point, I could not cancel the trip. And although John made fun of my limp several times, I didn't want it to interfere with our plans. It was painful, but the pain was mitigated by the inspiring settings we visited and just spending one-on-one time with my grandson. So lesson 1 in review. Murphy's Law is real. His law states anything that can go wrong can and will go wrong. Dealing with unexpected events can be very disruptive. First and foremost, put things in perspective. Will this event really matter in a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. So it's best that we just take a deep breath and move on with life. Dwelling on negative occurrences always makes matters worse than they really are. Stay positive and just deal with it. Lesson 2. We arrived in Scottsdale, Arizona a day ahead of schedule. This was done purposely so that we could be at our hotel and relax for a day before departure. The Marriott was a world-class facility with significant amenities. We were assigned to a large suite with a bedroom and a separate living space that doubled as office space. This is probably because the summertime in Scottsdale is somewhat off-season, and we were given one of the better suites. The restaurants on the property, they were above average also, especially for a hotel chain. It was very impressive even to my 12-year-old grandson. However, as we proceeded to each new destination, the hotels transitioned from luxury to more rustic, befitting the surroundings we were visiting. There was little adventure at the Marriott, but that rapidly changed as the trip advanced. On arrival at our 4th accommodations, John made a remarkable observation. As we entered our room for the next couple of days, while we were going to explore 2 superlative parks in the area, he said, "You know, Grampy, if things keep going the way they are, we'll be sleeping in an outhouse." Lesson 2, review. If you truly desire adventure in your life, it is necessary to step out of your comfort zone and into the unknown. The comfort zone is a great place to be, but nothing ever happens there. I assured John that the parks we were heading to will be totally worth the transition from luxury to adventure. Lesson 3. Why do kids feel they have to stand on the edge of a cliff with less than a few inches separating them from certain death is beyond me. I know we've all done similar things when we were kids, but we're not kids anymore, and we recognize the danger. Several times I had to tell John to please back away from the edge of the cliff, because if anything happened to him, I would never forgive myself, and your parents would never forgive me. It would be a catastrophic event for all of us, regardless of how it happened. Reluctantly, and usually with one of his negative sighs, he would back off a few inches. One of the observation points at Bryce Canyon allowed us to look slightly above our vantage point. Several of the higher cliffs were completely eroded underneath, with only a few inches of actual ground remaining intact. If you were to stand on the edge, there is literally nothing underneath you with very little movement. You potentially could caused that entire formation to crash hundreds of yards down the embankment. When looking at the debris in the area, it was obvious that this is a continual process. Anyone standing on those points are at risk of sudden death. After pointing this out, I believe my grandson understood the danger and took precautions at the remaining overview areas. Lesson 3 review. Age does not diminish experience, discipline, and relevance. Only time can provide us with these precious resources. When we mentor our younger generation, we pass on life-changing and in some cases life-saving advice to help the next in line. It is discipline that teaches us when that moment is right, and it's relevance that attracts the audience. Lesson 4. John made friends with a few other travelers on the trip. On this leg, we were heading to the Grand Canyon in an old iron horse train. We stopped in a frontier town and witnessed a gunfight at the local bank and the saloon. One of John's friends was accompanied by his grandmother. Like me, she was very excited to spend time with her grandson and visit the parks for the first time. She always wanted to see Southwest America, but until now she said she was unable to do so. So she was thrilled with everything that she had seen so far and anxious to visit the remaining parks. When we finally arrived at the entrance of the Grand Canyon, we had a lengthy hike to the overlook. John and his friends ran ahead to the designated area accompanied by a park ranger. I escorted Grandma to the site. When she arrived and took a look at the view, she started sharing adjectives like awesome, spectacular, unbelievable, breathtaking. John, being John, asked her, "This is not what you were expecting?" "Oh no, nothing could have prepared me for this." John, looking back at her, said, "Shouldn't the word grand be a clue?" I wasn't sure if I should laugh or push him over the edge, but at his age and perspective, his observation was justified. He really wasn't being disrespectful. Later on our trip, we visited with the members of the Navajo Nation. On the bus ride through their territory, it was obvious they have enormous natural resources. However, most of the residents live inside sod huts, small bungalows, or some form of trailer. When I asked one of the ranking Navajo women why were so many of their nation living in such austere conditions when they have the resources to live as well or better than most Americans, she was very quick to respond, saying, "You are so wrong. Our wealth is not in houses or cars, it's in the land. We find beauty, peace, and happiness in the land where our ancestors lived and raised their families. Their spirits are all around us. It is a privilege to live here and raise our families as they did. That to us is our true wealth." Lesson 4 review. All of us see things from our own perspective. Both John and I made an observation based on our personal point of view. In other words, it's saying, do not judge until you've walked a mile in another's moccasins. Always pay attention to what the other person is saying, and whenever possible, be the last one to speak. Then you will know the perspective of the other person's point of view. This will pay dividends with family, social, and business encounters. Lesson 5. I extended our trip by a couple of days so we could visit Las Vegas. I wanted John to see what God had created, but also what man can accomplish. We stayed at a signature hotel and had a great view of the Strip from the 12th floor. What men have built in Las Vegas is nothing short of remarkable. We toured some of the other signature hotels, including the Bellagio, where we watched the Music, Lights, and Water show, and then walked the remaining Strip from one end to the other. That evening, we attended a David Copperfield show at the MGM Grand, and the following night, a rock concert at the Hard Rock Cafe. John is very much into music. He is an accomplished drummer, guitarist, and pianist, and he also writes music. During the concert, the drummer recognized that John was very familiar with the songs they were performing, by his gestures, replicating the drummer's fills and accents, like this. At the end of the show, the drummer walked off stage to where we were seated and handed John a drumstick. Shortly after, the guitar player presented him with a guitar pick he had used during the concert. John was ecstatic. He could see himself performing on that stage. On the way out of the auditorium, we browsed a gallery of famous rock idols displaying pictures, letters, and the guitars played by superstars. It was a showcase of who's who on the rock scene. John was very impressed. Take my picture, he said, so we can have them hang it in the wall. They'll thank me later. Not wanting to discourage his enthusiasm, I let him indulge in his daydreams about his future endeavors. Lesson 5 review. Kids haven't learned they can't have it all. But should they? For the most part, we're all capable of accomplishing almost anything we believe we can. Napoleon Hill said, "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve." It is our limiting beliefs that trip us up every time. We are certainly capable of doing great things if we desire to do great things. As we get older, we settle and fear the unknown. But why? We should start thinking more like kids and believe we can have it all. Jesus said, "If ye have faith the size of a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible for you." I'm not suggesting that we stand on the edge of a cliff and jump up and down. I mean, that would be just stupidity, not faith. We're smart enough to know better than that. The overriding message here is that we need to think more like kids and believe that if we have faith in ourselves, willing to do the work, and pursue our dreams, we can achieve the expected results regardless of age. If it wasn't possible for you or me, we wouldn't have the desire. That is the picture you should hang in your mind's gallery. You'll thank me later.